Okay, this is the situation at the end of July, August 1940. We might as well concentrate on the important bit. The Germans have overrun northern France. They managed to capture Paris, and although they could probably wipe out the French quite easily in the next turn, I'm just going to play this historically. So we're in a position to declare a Vichy French option. The Italians did fantastically well because the French basically didn't have any defences in place to try and stop an Italian offensive in the south. In terms of the British, they lost most of the BEF, even though they managed to get Gort and his unit back. They could have done better if they'd had their transports in the right place instead of having them scattered over the Mediterranean and in Gibraltar. In terms of let's see what else we've got to mention. USSR pretty much did nothing. They're sort of considering a move on Bessarabia. Let's see if we can absorb that without really pissing the Germans off. Excuse my French. Chinese did nothing really. The Japanese did launch a land offensive where they were able to capture this hex here, which pretty much keeps most of the Chinese away from the coast. They've got a couple of coastal hexes still. It's not as if they can get any supplies in there because of Japanese naval units everywhere. America really didn't do much. Moved a few more ships to the Pacific Fleet in Pearl Harbor. Finland, as I said, is accepting a peace dictated by Germany effectively, with Russia saying, well, you don't carry on anymore because you'd end up getting conquered by the Soviet Union, which is something Germany doesn't want at this stage. Well, it doesn't want permanently. So, the situation is effectively a couple of months later than it happened in historical terms. The Germans overran the French. Personally, I like the way this handles French and British with these restricted troop commitments where you've not got cooperating forces. It was very difficult for the British to try and do anything. They did conduct an offensive to try and get back in contact with the French, but it didn't really do any good. In fact, it didn't do any good. It cost them one of their corps. French, although they had a reasonable army, it was the poor command and control. Even when they do get an offensive, they can barely do anything with the limited equipment they had. And after the colossal losses they took in the battle for Belgium, they were never really going to do anything. They did attempt to take Paris, but it didn't work. And they ended up losing a unit. Luckily, they had a spare division to throw away there. The Germans, they only took one unit loss again, and that was a division. So it's pretty much historically what happened to the French. They just went to pieces, really, once they were beaten in the north. And the Germans didn't lose that many troops in France. I wouldn't like to quote it, but it's not a significant number. So it really leaves the Allies in a bit of a mess. Potentially leaves Britain on its own as soon as this Vichy thing kicks in. So that's going to be a major problem. They still have a lot of their air force intact, though half of it's bombers And the Germans have taken quite a lot of fighter losses, a lot more fighter losses than they would have hoped for in the battle for the Low Countries and France. So that sets it up pretty good for the bad weather that is due to arrive in the next months, which will be September, October. Things are going to deteriorate again. And that's it.